Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something truly fascinating. We're going to uncover why Bolivia, and not just Peru, is hiding some of the absolute most mysterious ancient sites in all of South America. Seriously, we're about to go on a journey that might just completely rewrite what you thought you knew about pre-Columbian history.
You know, when most of us picture ancient South America, Peru totally steals the spotlight, right? We immediately think of Machu Picchu and the mighty Inca Empire. But right next door, Bolivia has actually been hiding much older, deeply complex mysteries. The Inca were incredible for sure, but they were basically the latecomers to this party. Bolivia is sitting on sites so unusual that archaeologists have literally spent decades arguing about who built them and why.
Which brings us to the ultimate question, the one that's been keeping archaeologists up at night for decades. Who was actually here, and what were they truly capable of? I want you to keep that in the back of your mind as we tour 5 astonishing locations today. We're talking about entire cities that sat completely undiscovered until just a few years ago, and massive structures raised in locations that make absolutely zero practical sense.
Chapter 1: The Giant Carved Rock of Samaipata.
All right, let's dive straight into our first site, which is this unbelievable archaeological marvel sitting entirely unexplained in the Andean foothills. 650, that is the length, in feet, of Samaipata. So picture something more than 2 football fields long. It's a massive sandstone rock formation where the entire surface has been deliberately carved. Based on our current understanding, this is the largest carved rock in the Americas. We aren't just talking about a few random etchings here. We are talking about a massive, sprawling ridge sculpted by human hands over generations.
And the surface of this thing is it's a bizarre combination of geometric patterns and celestial alignments. You have this winding, carved ridge known as the serpent's spine, sitting right alongside precisely cut geometric circles and twin jaguar figures, all of it perfectly aligning with solar events like the solstices. These features seem to appear completely out of nowhere, with no known earlier tradition in the region. Even the Inca, who arrived much later, were so awed by it that they just built their own structures around it without even trying to replicate it.
Moving on to Chapter 2, Enigmas of the Altiplano.
Leaving the foothills, we head west into the vast open plains of the Altiplano, right up in the heart of the Andes. And here is the really crucial point. Humans were not just surviving up here. They were thriving and building complex ceremonial centers at an extreme elevation of 12,000 feet above sea level. To put that into perspective, that's an altitude where a lot of modern tourists struggle to just walk up a single flight of stairs without gasping for air. Yet these ancient cultures were engineering massive stone monuments in a landscape that stretches completely flat toward the horizon in literally every direction.
To really wrap our heads around just how deep this history goes, we have to look at the timeline. Long before the famous Inca Empire ever existed, there was a succession of highly sophisticated cultures, the Chiripa, the Pucara, the Tiwanaku, stretching back thousands of years. As you can probably guess, untangling exactly who built what in this deeply layered history is an absolute headache for modern archaeologists.
And speaking of headaches, we absolutely have to address the intense debate surrounding the Pocadia monolith. It's this broken oracle figure found near Lake Titicaca, completely covered in carved symbols. Now, mainstream archaeologists confidently view these as a purely local Andean tradition, which makes sense. But on the flip side, some controversial linguists have argued these symbols actually represent 3000 BC Proto-Sumerian writing. Now, we aren't here to take sides on that debate, but the sheer fact that these carvings are so distinct that they can provoke such a wild academic divide, that tells you just how incredibly unique this ancient iconography truly is.
Not too far from there, chemical analysis of human remains proved that the nearby site of Honcohuancane wasn't just some sleepy local village, but a massive ceremonial hub drawing people from hundreds of miles away. Isotope studies are acting kind of like a magic lens for us here. By looking at the microscopic traces left in bones and teeth from the water and food consumed in early life, scientists proved that people were traveling vast distances across the Andes just to reach these sunken stone courts long before Tiwanaku ever reached the height of its power.
All right, Chapter 3: The Mountaintop Fortress.
Leaving those flat plains behind, we're ascending once again, this time up to Cerro Elba. It's a steep, flat-topped mountain that pushes the very limits of ancient engineering. This site perfectly represents a highly contested border space where 2 ancient superpowers essentially collided. You have the expanding Wari Empire pushing out from Peru, slamming right into the Tiwanaku, who dominated the Bolivian highlands. Cerro Elba was likely this highly strategic, heavily defended outpost right on the bleeding edge of the frontier between these two massive empires. Just think for a second about what it actually takes to build a monumental settlement on a sheer mountain. I mean, they had to quarry massive stones. They had to physically drag them up incredibly steep slopes. And the craziest part? There was absolutely zero natural water on the summit. None. They engineered complex rainwater catchments just so their massive labor forces wouldn't die of thirst. The sheer logistical willpower required to pull this off is just staggering. Which brings us to Chapter 4, Amazonia's Hidden Urban Empire.
Now we're descending entirely out of the mountains and dropping down into the Llanos de Mogos, which is a seasonally flooded Amazonian savanna. For decades, the dense jungle hid its greatest secrets from us. But in 2022, researchers used LiDAR technology, basically firing millions of laser pulses from an aircraft, to digitally strip away the jungle canopy. It proved definitively that the tools we use to look at history matter just as much as where we decide to look.
What that data revealed literally stopped researchers in their tracks. They found an interconnected network, a major ancient city system belonging to the hidden Kasarabe culture that housed tens of thousands of people. For centuries, we basically assumed this region was just a sparsely populated wilderness. Instead, it was a sprawling, incredibly sophisticated civilization operating right under our noses the whole time.
The Kasarabe didn't just survive the seasonal floods in the Amazon, they completely mastered their environment to engineer this sprawling urban empire, and they did it step by step. First, they built miles of raised causeways so they could actually travel across the flooded plains. Second, they dug massive reservoirs and canals to hold water through the dry seasons. And third, they raised monumental platform pyramids that served as the political and ceremonial hearts of their communities. It is just a stunning example of large-scale environmental engineering.
And finally, Chapter 5, What Else is Buried?
As we wrap up this explainer, the craziest part is realizing we've really only scratched the very surface of Bolivia's unmapped history. The pace of discovery right now is accelerating, and the picture is only getting more complex. Ground-penetrating radar has already confirmed hidden cavities beneath the Samaipata rock we talked about earlier, yet the tunnels themselves remain an entirely unexplored mystery. There are literally sealed entrances at the base of the rock that nobody has fully investigated yet. Add to that the vast, completely unmapped regions of the Altiplano and the eastern lowlands that haven't even been surveyed by LiDAR, and the potential for what is still out there is mind-blowing.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. If an entire network of ancient cities could hide in the Amazon for centuries, just waiting for a laser beam from an airplane to finally reveal it, what else is waiting to be discovered right beneath our feet? It really makes you wonder just how many more chapters of human history are out there, quietly waiting to be